step forwards to my shadow. You are follow in my pattern.
Hello and welcome to the Ladies' Room. Today it is my great pleasure to have with me my dear friend Andrew Cameron Bailey, who is a true Renaissance man. He is an author, a photographer, a filmmaker, an artist, you name it, he does it. Hi, Andrew. How are you?
I didn't tell you I'm also a brain surgeon, but I'm an amateur in that, so don't.
Oh, I'm going to need brain surgery pretty soon. So
Okay.
they call it practicing medicine. So, a little more practice and you'll be fine.
I'll start sharpening my tomahawk.
So, yeah. So you're in Arizona at the moment?
No, we're in Colorado. We're at Sunrise Ranch in the foothills of the Rocky Mountains, 450-acre intentional community retreat center, conference and retreat center. Very beautiful place. We're a media team here, Connie and I.
Wow. So it's an intentional community. How many people live there?
It's low at the moment since COVID. We were about 100. I think we're now between 50 and 60. We literally had to let some people go, sadly. But we just returned from our adventure with you on the East Coast, went via a big southern sweep, ended up in Nashville, Tennessee, visiting family there. And here we are back. And we just got back literally last night.
Oh my goodness, are you tired from all your travels?
Yeah, but I'm recovering. Yeah, you don't have much, on the road like that, you don't sleep that well.
You and your beautiful wife, Connie Baxter Marlowe, also a Renaissance woman, filmmaker, photographer, and you guys co-wrote The Trust Frequency. And 10 years ago, we did a show just based on the trust frequency, which is just an amazing book that anyone who wants to expand their consciousness and have a way better attitude toward life should read The Trust Frequency. It's 10 paradigms for a new...
10 assumptions for a new paradigm.
10 assumptions for a new paradigm. Had it backwards. Okay.
10 paradigms for a new assumption. Okay.
Yeah, right. Maybe I'm dyslexic and I didn't know it.
You're dyslexic.
So, Andrew, now you're concentrating on your pop art, which you actually started in London, I think, didn't you? If you were doing black and white photography in a dark room, and then you started with color, and now, of course, with all the AI and digital. Tell me how that's all coming together for you. You had a big show at LTV.
For the month of October.
Yeah.
The show, if you can see my 4 Warhols in drag there, that was a postcard we created for that show at LTV for the month of October. And I'm featuring Warhol just because you guys are in Warhol land there in East Hampton. And that's the only one of these paintings I actually created in East Hampton. I just said, I was meditating in the morning and I just said, I've got to do Warhol. I'd done a number of them, but I got the idea for this one. And there's a whole story. Every one of my pieces, Judy, has a story behind it. And some of those stories are quite enlightening. They're even spiritual. Sometimes they're certainly historical. And they're always fun and funny and informational. So that's a part of what I'm bringing to this field of this 1960s field of pop art as it comes into the 21st century here. So I was always the science guy. I was a chemistry professor back in South Africa as a young man. And taught college. I taught mostly chemistry, but some physics and a lot of mathematics, actually. So I was a science guy, but my girlfriends were always artists. So we had one of the best art schools, well, the best art college in Africa attached to the university. So people came from all over Africa to this cool college. It was so much fun. And I was teaching in the chemistry side of it. And my social life was entirely in the art world side of it. And I got sucked into art in a way that I'm so grateful for, because I ended up sitting in on my girlfriend's classes, not the technique, not the painting, but art history just totally fascinated me. And I literally sat in on their classes, read all their textbooks, got deeply into it, and never thought that I'd become an artist myself. And I thought, what am I going to do? I've got to have an art form. I can't just be this, dull science guy. I was an athlete, so I was a spear fisherman and a surfer, those kinds of things.
Oh, fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I never thought I'd be an artist. So I thought, what do you do if you're a chemist? Oh, I'll be a photographer. I'll be a photographer.
I love being in the dark room.
I can mix chemicals. I can calculate exposures.
Yeah.
I can do those kinds of things. So I became a photographer, and it turned out that I had an eye for that. It turned out that actually I was pretty damn good. I didn't have to think about it. I just had a sense of composition. I moved to London. I moved to London in 1969, and it was the year of the huge pop art retrospective at the Tate Gallery in London. I spent a lot of time totally absorbed, immersed in that.
Yeah.
At the same time, I was working for a world famous photographer as a gopher. My job was basically to get the coffee, mix the chemicals, make sure that the place was clean for these celebrities to come through. It was pretty cool. And I was supposed to get to use the lab, but I never did because it was always busy. So, but through this, and at one point I went to Kodak. I actually walked into the Kodak building in London, and I said, do you have any strange and wonderful films or papers or chemicals that I could do some experimental photography with? So that's kind of when I first started actually doing something. And I had a little...
And did they give you stuff that they were finished with and going to throw away?
No, they gave me brand new stuff. I walked out of there with a pile of stuff, of these papers and things, these lithographic papers. And it was really cool. They were so supportive. It was amazing. And then I got to play. So I didn't do it it was Lord Patrick Litchfield's lab. I didn't ever get to use it, but I got to hang out there and clean it and mix chemicals, right? But I had a little lab at home. And so I started doing wacky things. I said, what would happen? You're supposed to be at 72 degrees with your developer. What if I boil it?
What if I boil it?
What if I boil it? And I did these nutty things. I just said, okay, I'm going to play. I'm just going to be absolutely ridiculous. I totally fell in love with the work, for example, of Man Ray. You remember his work, Judy?
Oh, I love Man Ray.
These totally weird, it's photography, but it's not it's certainly not commercial photography, and it's barely...
more abstract, yeah.
Yeah, so I came up with some really weird images, and then using the papers that Kodak gave me, Kodalith, this transparent paper that you printed. It was transparent. It was a sheet of clear stuff. And you print and image. It's completely transparent except for your image. So that was cool. And I did a lot of
So you could do like double exposures with it.
I was doing all sorts of nutty stuff. I was cutting up negatives and trying to find ways of sticking them together, stuff like that. And I did a bunch of wacky stuff. Let me fast forward really quickly I love all that work. It all disappeared. We had a mudslide in California, and all of that early work went away in a storm that also took the house out. So that's how I ended up in Hamptons, because I was in New York for a year. I was in New York for 1 year working on a video television project. And the house out in California was completely destroyed. And we could have lost kids if we'd been there. So thankfully, we were safely in East Hampton region.
Right.
And we survived. But here I was, and all of that stuff went away. The only thing I didn't lose was every black and white negative I ever shot from the very first one in 1965. I lost all my color work. I lost all my prints. I lost all my art collection. All of that stuff went.
Now, why was the black and white stuff still around? Where was it? In a different place?
This is a total miracle, Judy. I flew out there. My friend came and picked me up at San Francisco Airport. We drove down to Boulder Creek, if you know where that is, just north of Santa Cruz, up in the mountains, with redwoods. Yeah. And it was a stand of redwoods that had slipped down the hill and hit the edge of the house and flipped the house off its foundation. And
oh my goodness.
The trees went bouncing down onto the road down below us, skidded across, and ended up with its roots in the San Lorenzo River, 200 feet from where it started out. taking out our house on the way. I pull up the driveway, and the very first thing I saw, aside from this rather cockeyed looking house that I had been renovating for the last 3 years, was a flash of bright yellow. If you remember the Kodak boxes that your paper came in,
Sure.
this bright yellow box, and I knew exactly what it was. And I said, oops, what's that? And I got out of the car, and the first thing I did is I went over to a sheet of plywood siding from the house that was leaning against a redwood tree. And under the sheet of plywood was every negative I'd ever shot. In
Wow.
that box, it wasn't even wet.
Or were they in like slides? Were they in little boxes?
No, they were in sleeves. They were in, with your
Oh, in
black and white
sleeves.
film, they
You
were
had
in
them
sleeves. They
organized.
weren't transparency sleeves. This is black and white. The
Yeah.
slides, I had thousands of transparencies, never saw them again, all gone. However, the black and white survived, so I still have right here in Colorado, like I could probably reach behind me here and pull out the box and show you. It's literally,
Yeah.
and that's one of the few things I saved from our whole heritage there. It was pretty amazing. So we were in New York at the time, and we got stuck because, well, we lost the house there. We had a loft, 32 Union Square West. Is that a familiar address to you in Manhattan?
In Manhattan, Union Square,
Yeah.
Sure.
So we
Union
had the
Square.
top floor. We had the top floor on the roof garden. During this time, it was a 1 year thing where I was developing a video, a music video thing. This is 3 years before MTV.
So it was sort of Park Avenue South, all those lofts there.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I love
So
that.
Andy Warhol's factory was the 6th floor. We were the 11th floor. It was Saul Steinberg, the
We're in the
famous
same
cartoonist.
building.
Saul Steinberg moved out, and we found it was available, and we took it over, which is pretty
Wow.
amazing.
I was lucky.
And then there was a fire in the building. And
Oh,
so
no.
we took a summer rental in the Hamptons. And at the end of the summer, I talked to the landlord. I said, well, what would it take to make this a year-round rental? And we spent the next 22 years, Judy. So when we met you, we were living in a rental in East Quogue on 32 acres, that old farmhouse. I think you remember.
Wow.
Uh-huh. And the house in California had gone down. Then we lost our place in New York, ended up in the Hamptons, which is why we're having this conversation today.
Right. Unbelievable.
Here I am in New York with my wacky photography stuff, and I was producing bands and doing a lot of music at the time. And somebody said to me, you've got to check out this new system at SVA. That's the School of Visual Arts. It's a computer graphics system. I said, whoa, that sounds interesting. What's that? He said, well, it's one of a kind. It's $150,000 it costs to build this thing. There's only one. And you can sign up for a course, and it'll take your black and whites and turn them into color.
Wow.
And control them. And Judy, I don't have them ready to show on this show, but I'll show you at some point what I did back then. Very, very slow to scan. And I would take an 8x10 portrait of somebody. I'd scan it, and it would take half an hour for the scan. And then you could assign to each of the shades of black, white, and all the gray shades in between. You had 16 colors. And so that was fun, but frustrating as hell. You couldn't control it. It was cool, though. It was cool. I really loved it. It wasn't until, and this is about 4 years before Photoshop, and then Photoshop came in, and I wasn't crazy about Photoshop. I said, if I want to degraded photography, I can do that with a shitty camera. So I ended up engaging with Photoshop as it evolved, and each iteration of Photoshop became more and more useful. But at the same time, other programs, artsy, crazy people, like there's a program called Alien Skin, where you can take your photography. This came out maybe 10 years after Photoshop. You buy Alien Skin, and now you can do all sorts of crazy things with your photography, including turning black and white into color, or you can shoot in color. But I was always interested in taking a photograph. Now,
so is it like kind of like paint by numbers? You take your black and white photographs and you pick what colors you want where?
Yes. Originally, it was extremely difficult, but gradually that became an option, right? You could say, I want Warhol here to have blue eyes. There he is with brown eyes. I want him to have blue eyes or yellow hair or whatever.
And was it a touch thing, or you spoke? Was AI involved in that?
This is long before. This is
before AI.
30 years before AI.
Oh,
AI wasn't even, it was a dream. I mean, AI,
Well, and
yeah,
IBM, had Watson, but
yeah.
that's that.
So fast forward to recently, AI has kicked in. It's very helpful. You can do extraordinary things with it very swiftly, including taking photographs and turning them into whatever you want. So I've developed something, and I'm not going to, the pop art is one thing. I was interested in pop. I'm totally in love with all of the, I spent some time with Warhol. This picture right here is based on, where is it? Somewhere there. Huh, I'm just flipped around. I met Warhol 3 times, and one of those times, this painting is based on that. It was 1974. It was Halloween, and Warhol for that Halloween was Marilyn Monroe of all things. Now he was a
With
cross-dresser.
a crown on? Does he have a crown on?
He did not have a crown on. I added that because my show is
Usually
called
that's what he
Queens.
shows the queens.
My show is called Queens of New York, and you might say,
Right.
well, that's a boy in a wig. So I put a crown on just in case anybody got confused, right? So Warhol had gone down to I was managing a band, and the band was playing the Factory that night. That happened in 1974. Warhol was down.
You had a band called Deja Voodoo, right?
That was me, but that band was an all-girl punk band called the Stilettos. That some people listening to this are going to remember the Stilettos. Debbie Harry came out of the Stilettos. So that's a whole other story, but this painting is based on that. So how are we doing with this? Are we?
We are running through this. It's also interesting.
While we talk, Jude, I'm going to change my background just for the fun of it.
Okay. Well,
and
the
you keep
Queens of
talking.
New York show at LTV was amazing. You had about 10 large queens, and they were, bright colors. Like, that's fabulous. But
so this is one of my favorite queens. I met this queen. It is actually a transvestite. A very colorful individual under a bridge over on maybe 13th Street around 13th Avenue, or anyway, around 39th Street. There's the L down there. And here was this, I'm coming back from a construction job, and I'm walking along, and it's dark. And here's a shadowy figure. And the shadowy figure was busy getting dolled up for her, I'm not sure what to call this being, but it seemed to be
get your pronouns right, Andrew.
What's that?
Get your pronouns right.
Well, it's been very confusing for a long time. So part of the political backdrop of my entire show, when I said Queens of America, Queens of America, America theoretically doesn't have queens, but one of my pieces in the show, if you remember, was Queen Elizabeth. That would be Elizabeth Taylor. The other one is this queen. I called her Queen of New York. She walks the streets of Manhattan at night and makes a living doing that, miraculously. I was not interested in her services.
How did she make a living?
I'm not going to speak to, it might be people under the age of 93 on this show, and I don't want to shock anybody.
Okay.
But she was a cross-dressing transvestite, so I don't know what gender you would call that. Then, so I can keep just changing these at random just for the fun of it.
Yeah, they're beautiful.
Because everyone, as you can see, every one of them has a story. So,
well, you said they're educational and spiritual, and I was thinking they're historical and hysterical. Right? They're you look at them, and they evoke so much. You can read so much into these.
I have a phrase. It's in the interest of hysterical accuracy.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So here's a hysterical being. You might recognize Pablito.
Yes, but don't you have another one of Picasso?
I do. I have a bunch of them. I take these celebrities, these iconic figures, and I do nutty things with them.
It's just one. It must be so much fun, Andrew.
It was my therapy all of this last winter as we were just emerging from COVID. This just kept me engaged.
You guys are so prolific. You had an 80th birthday party about a month ago. Not even
Don't give away my secrets, Jude.
Oh, sorry. And
I'm actually 93.
Your beautiful wife, Connie, been together for 20 years and got married. Oh, I love that. got married Christmas Eve last year, New Year's Eve.
So this is me. You might
Yeah.
recognize me by the beret. I normally wear it. Where's my beret? There it is. Hold on. Okay.
That's you. You
Now,
look
see if
very
you can
pale.
recognize this guy.
You look very
Unfortunately, I had
pale.
to.
There you go.
I had to leave the Eiffel Tower in Paris. It was too damn heavy, but there we are.
That's great. I love that.
So like many artists, I do self-portraits of various kinds, and I'll show you a few of those.
Okay.
And Jude, keep dropping in those questions, and
So
I'll.
what? So they're educational because it's like a new technique, and it's very inspiring for young artists. And oh, wow, look at him. Oh,
So
yellow
you may not realize this, but I'm actually an alien. I'm an alien. I have a green card to prove it. So there's that. I was an ethnographer from a distant galaxy, and I was dropped off here in 1620 in the side alleys of Paris. And I was told to blend in with the locals and take lots of notes, and they'd be back. And they still haven't come back, so I'm still here. And my skin was chartreuse. It was brilliant, brilliant green, and there was no way I could blend in with the locals who had completely different colored skin. So I became nocturnal, and the only being who would even come close to me was this cat. The cat was white, and slowly we started trading colors. So I became lighter and whiter, and the cat became green.
Became orange.
Yep.
Green. Okay.
Yeah. So
wow.
That's that story. So these tales evolve, and you can see what's woven into that. Year 1620 was the year the Mayflower set sail across the Atlantic.
And then you wrote that giant book.
And I wrote that with a book about the Mayflower Revelations.
That's amazing. That book is amazing.
Have you read it?
Whoa, I have a low battery. Well, it's a long book, and I got about a third of I'll finish it, but it's a lot.
Did you get to the sexy part yet?
No.
Damn, you see, you're missing out.
I got to get back to it.
I was concerned it might be,
like 5 books next to my bed that I read 5 books at the same time.
So we have, here's someone you might like. There she is.
So I think at this point, Andrew, we're all aliens, or at least mutants on this planet. Oh, that's a beautiful queen. Now, who is that?
This is Guadalupe.
Guadalupe.
So who is Guadalupe? So there's a whole education there. Guadalupe, if you're in Mexico, she is like the Virgin of Guadalupe.
Yeah, she's
this
a saint.
iconic being, and people actually recognize her from this, which amazes me. They say, that's Guadalupe. I said, well, that was my intention, but how do you know? And I don't know how they get that. So if you go to the website, and I'm still developing this, if you come to the Queen of Sheba, for example, you look at this and you go, Queen of Sheba, I've heard of her, but so on the site, there's a little bit of history. Sometimes I lift it out of Wikipedia. So there's a little bit of educational story. And what's she doing as a Queen of America? Well, her ancestors came over here, or not her ancestors, her descendants came over here as part of the Rastafarian religion. What's the Rastafarian religion? Oh, Bob Marley. Oh, Haile Selassie. Oh, so there's all this history, Jude, and it's spiritual. It's about the different religions and the ways of understanding reality. And it's fun, and it's art, and it's we can communicate so much through art. I love it.
Yeah. You have the Queen of Sheba?
I'm looking for her right now, and I got the Queen of Me instead. That's me and Connie up in Queen of Sheba. Where are you?
We're winding down to the last couple of minutes, but boy,
wow, you see, we could go on and on.
So now people can get on your website and can they like it's Christmas time. So
you know what? The Queen of Sheba didn't make it. Look, here's another self-portrait just for the fun of it.
Oh my goodness.
So that's
very interesting. That's when you still had green skin.
And
amazing, Andrew.
If people
I wanted to talk about your because the music, meeting all of the guys that were in your band, the Deja Voodoo, at your birthday party, and they all sang and performed, and you were all so Well, there was so much love in the room. You know all each other for what, 30, 40 years?
Some of them 50 years. It's crazy.
50 years. And they all sang and played. And what a night that was. That was just amazing. There were, what, 40 people there, maybe?
No, it was about 25.
Seemed like more.
And the fact that I actually designed and built that beautiful place was, I was so proud to have everybody there, and Rosaline Kerner, the Belgian artist, hosting all of us. What a blessing that was. I don't think I've ever been hit with so much love in my life.
Yeah, it was just a wonderful night. Well, we've run out of time, and you and I could go on for probably the next
Couple of
3,
weeks.
4, 5 hours.
Right.
So
If
well,
anybody wants to see more, go to Cameron Baxter Galleries, plural.com. Cameron Baxter Galleries.com. There's a lot to be seen there, including our black and white photography and including a whole bunch of this art.
And get on Amazon and buy The Trust Frequency. Give it to everybody for Christmas. It's a wonderful book. Well, it's wonderful to see you. Zoom is amazing. We can feel like we're in the same room.
What a blessing. What a blessing. Really.
Yeah. Big hugs and kisses to both you and Connie.
Right.
And just have a beautiful Christmas.
And love to Michael and Jennifer and all of you guys. And I miss you already.
Yeah, we miss you too. So everybody, thank you for joining the Ladies Room. We want you to be happy and healthy and do art and be inspired by Andrew's stories and art. And have a great Christmas. Love you. Bye. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.